Hey everybody, welcome to the Briefing Room. I'm Devin Dwyer in Washington. Great to have you with us today on this very busy Tuesday of a holiday week. Some breaking news from the White House we'll get to in just a second. But also, we're getting in today some stunning new images from inside those detention centers on the southern border. We'll bring them to you. Plus, tanks arriving on the National Mall here in Washington in a short time. We'll talk about what's in store for the 4th of July. And there's a new poll out on the race for 2020. You'll want to see this. Numbers just coming in on which Democrats got the biggest bounce out of last week's first Democratic primary debate. But first, breaking news from the White House, a mystery involving the Vice President of the United States, Mike Pence. He called off a trip. He was on Air Force Two on his way to New Hampshire this afternoon when he was abruptly returned to the White House. The White House officials are not saying what is going on there, but our Tara Palmieri, a White House correspondent, is there. Tara, you're hearing that there's no cause for alarm, but this is highly unusual.
It's very strange. And also the fact that they won't answer questions besides something came up, it's raising alarm among the press corps. We're trying to figure out, well, what happened? What came up? What made the vice president go all the way to this military airport in Maryland, get on the plane, and then deplane and go back to Washington? And we're just not getting any answers right now, Devin. Our colleague, Meredith McGraw, she spoke to the vice president's chief of staff, Mark Short, and he said that we would all know in a few weeks. Very bizarre. So the White House is just not being straight with us on this, not telling us why the vice president had to come back and why his first meeting was with the president.
And he was set to be in New Hampshire today, we should say, for an opioid recovery event. And one of the organizers there told local media that we don't know why the vice president could make it. He added, it doesn't sound good. So this isn't coming out of nowhere. Even those that were expecting the VP think this isn't good news.
Right. So I spoke to someone on the ground there, the spokesperson for this Granite Recovery Center, where he was supposed to go and speak with over 250 people about the opioid crisis in the country, and they said there were no obvious security concerns like, protests or a sense of hostility in the room. So there was no obvious reason to keep the vice president. Of course, Secret Service has their secrets, and they know those kinds of things about what may have kept him from going to New Hampshire. But the fact that he actually went all the way to Maryland to get on the plane and then deplane obviously creates the impression that there was something back here at the White House that he needed to be here for. But all we're getting right now, something came up, non-issue, not an emergency, and there's a lot of smoke there, Devin.
Yeah, there certainly is, and we know at this White House, a lot of unusual activity sometimes means something is up, and we know your antenna is up, and you'll keep reporting, Tara. Thanks so much. We should note that officials did tell us that this was not a national security issue and also not a health issue, so it is truly a mystery. We'll stay on it. Next, now to that continued fallout from the crisis at the southern border and these new images just coming in. Take a look of the crowded and horrible conditions in some of the facilities as recently as this month. These are new images from a Department of Homeland Security Inspector General report. Our immigration reporter Quinn Owen is here to tell us more about this. Quinn, this is new confirmation about the conditions there that we had only been hearing about from attorneys and activists. Now we actually see it.
Right, seeing those pictures and, yes, new confirmation of some of the condition reports we heard from attorneys and immigrant advocates. One facility manager quoted in this report described the overcrowded conditions as a ticking time bomb of people just packed into these facilities that aren't meant to take people long term. There was reports of no showers or no hot meals at multiple of the facilities for kids that were being held there. And about a third of those unaccompanied kids that were held in some of those Border Patrol stations had been there longer than the 72-hour mandated time limit. Standing
room only. The report stood out to me that some of these children were required to stand packed in there in spaces designed for 40 people. They had 70-plus people in there for days. Simply stunning. This is on top of some new video that we just are receiving today as well from Texas Congressman Joaquin Castro. He was part of that delegation yesterday that went into one of the facilities in El Paso. He broke the rules and shot this video. You see women here in blue sleeping bags. Quinn, this was controversial. Yesterday we heard from a congresswoman here on the show that some of these people were told to drink water from the toilets because the faucets weren't working. speaking.
Yeah, a bit unclear exactly what's being alleged here, but lots of strong words from Democrats who went down and toured the facilities. CBP hasn't responded to our questions about what exactly they make of the allegations and where those allegations were being targeted, but a lot of news coming out of that congressional delegation
and
down at the
simply
border.
hard to believe that this is what goes on here in the United States for detainees or inmates of any kind. We should say that we asked the Department of Homeland Security and Customs and Border Protection for a guest today. They declined to provide us with one, but this statement from them is in the Watchdog report. They say that the current migration flow and the resulting humanitarian crisis are rapidly overwhelming the ability of the federal government to respond. They did say, however, they are committed to the care and well-being of those detainees. We caught up a short time ago with a former Customs and Border Protection agent, Jen Budd. She was a senior patrol officer in Southern California from 1995 to 2001. You see her there in her uniform. She has since left the agency and is now an immigrant advocate. She told us about her experience there and why these images surprise her. Jen, thank you so much for coming in. Why don't you start by getting your reaction to these images that we've been seeing over the past few weeks from those detention facilities along the border. Does that look familiar to you? Is that something that was commonplace during your time with the Border Patrol?
You know, I'm used to seeing the detention facilities, but I'm not used to seeing the overcrowdedness, and I'm not used to seeing the horrible conditions that they're keeping these asylum seekers in. It was a different demographics back when I was an agent.
Yeah, at that time, as we know from the numbers, a lot of the migrants were single young men. Now, of course, families, a lot of unaccompanied children. In your view, though, as someone who works with immigrants now, as part of the department back then, how did it get this bad? What's to blame for the current crisis down there?
Well, I think, you know, it's many years are to blame, and certainly now this administration, they're taking advantage of neglect of the immigration system for a long time, and basically they're trying to apply a law enforcement model to something that is not a law enforcement issue, but is a humanitarian issue. The fact is most of these people are asylum seekers. And nobody deserves to be housed and kept like this. And I've personally seen and talked to asylum seekers after they've been released from CBP custody, because I volunteer at a lot of the shelters down here. And I can tell you that what you are seeing in Texas is the same thing that we're seeing here in San Diego. And it is the norm. It's not unusual. They come in with heads full of lice, and the children are malnourished, and they're wearing the same clothes that they've been wearing for weeks, and the horror stories that they're telling me, it's like something from a third world country, and it's just shameful and disgusting, in my opinion.
And certainly overwhelming for everybody involved, and you have certainly written and spoken out about the culture inside the agency. A lot of these agents not really equipped to deal with the humanitarian crisis that's right at their hands. They're also, we understand, investigating some cultural challenges inside Border Patrol in light of that Facebook group, which ProPublica exposed in the past 24 hours. What's your sense of that? You have tweeted about that there were some bad apples in the department even when you were there.
Well, you know, a lot of people use that term, and I don't want to say that all agents are bad agents, certainly, but the environment there, the reason why so few females work in the Border Patrol isn't because the work is hard and isn't because it's challenging. It's because of the sexual harassment and the violence that happens. I personally was sexually assaulted and raped by a classmate, and I was told I wasn't allowed to go to the police, and if I did or I filed a complaint, then I would be fired at the academy. And it should be known that I went into the academy just a month after Chief Provost left the academy. So she knows what this is all about, and she knows that this is the culture and this is the environment of the Border Patrol. And this is what happens when you continually throw money at an agency and there's no accountability. There is little to no accountability in the Border Patrol at all.
It certainly sounds like you're skeptical of any investigation that they claim they are doing right now into this episode.
Yeah, I would be surprised. I mean, it's very rare that a Border Patrol agent ever gets reprimanded or fired for anything. It's usually whenever an outside agency, say maybe they get in trouble with California Highway Patrol or a sheriff's unit, then something happens to them. But otherwise, Border Patrol agents pretty much can do what they want, and the management condones it and looks the other way, because a lot of the people, unfortunately, in management are the same way, and it's something that needs to be dealt with. I wasn't surprised by that Facebook page. It rings true to what I know of the Border Patrol, and you know, the fact is we do need Border Patrol agents, but there needs to be a lot of cleanup going on in the Border Patrol, and until they're ready to get that, you know, nothing's going to change.
And we do know that those members of Congress who were down at the border yesterday said they plan an investigation of their own. It sounds like they're equally skeptical as you are that the agency itself can clean up from within, so we'll see where that goes. But Jen Budd, a former senior patrol officer with the U.S. Border Patrol, now an immigration advocate, really appreciate your time and perspective, Jen. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
And there is a glimmer of good news, Quinn. Late yesterday, the president signed into law a massive aid package for the border, $4.6 billion, bipartisan deal. Here's what it is. Will this make a difference, you think?
Well, this supplemental spending agreement has been in the works for several weeks now, and the Trump administration actually said they'd have to cut down on education and recreation resources for kids in detention centers. It's really just a matter of how quickly they can get this money into the system to help kids.
We'll see the clothing, baby formula, hygiene products we just heard about, much needed down there. So we do hope we get that stuff quickly to the border. Quinn Owen, thanks so much for that reporting. Well, we're just 2 days away now from the 4th of July. Festivities getting underway here in the nation's capital. This year, though, the event is engulfed in an unusual level of politics. It's normally a pretty bipartisan, nonpartisan gathering. The President of the United States, of course, inserting himself. He plans a speech from the Lincoln Memorial. The Republican National Committee today said they are handing out tickets to Republicans to sit there. The DNC just told us moments ago they didn't get any. And the military is right now trucking in tanks, preparing fighter jets for flyovers. And our Louis Martinez at the Pentagon is trying to track down how much all of this is going to cost and what's actually going to happen on Thursday afternoon. Louis, thanks for coming in. Critics are really decrying this as an improper use of the military. What are folks over there at the Pentagon saying about this?
Well, Devin, what's happening here at the Pentagon is that they're following through with the orders. They got the request from the White House. The president wanted this type of equipment. He wanted flyovers for the July 4th celebration, and he's going to get them. They're going to be planes from the Navy. They're going to be planes from the Air Force, even aircraft from the Marine Corps. We're going to see the new version of Marine One, which isn't even actually in service yet, but is going to be flown by Sikorsky pilots. That's the manufacturer. And we're going to see Air Force One doing a low-altitude flyover over the Lincoln Memorial. But one of the big questions that you raised there is, you know, is this militarizing an event that has traditionally not involved the military? Well, in certain cases, it has involved the military. There's an annual parade every year held along Constitution Avenue, and yes, there have been military platoons that have participated and marched at the head of that parade for the last couple of years, but we've never seen anything like this where you have these flyovers above the Lincoln Memorial, and that's the thing that's drawing questions, because one of the things that they're asking about is how much is this actually going to cost? We do have a statement from a Pentagon official telling us that right now they're trying to determine the actual cost because they don't know. But typically when you have flyovers like this kind, let's say over the Super Bowl, over major sporting events, over other national events, like let's say even a Boy Scout Jamboree, those costs of moving those aircraft from point A to point B are absorbed by training costs, because it's always in the budget that those military pilots and that equipment are going to be trained and used for purposes for when they eventually go into a real-life situation.
Interesting. So the 4th of July could actually be considered a training mission for budgetary purposes. How about real quick, Louis, on the tanks? A lot of chatter about those huge tanks. Those are very heavy. They're not meant to be on city streets. They're being trained in. Do we know where those are going to go?
Yeah, so the discussion that we're hearing right now is that they're trying to locate areas around the Lincoln Memorial to see where, what kind of areas could absorb the weight of a 60-ton tank for an extended period of time. So we've seen these vehicles, these tanks that have been moved by rail from Fort Stewart in Georgia. They're going to be moved tonight during overnight hours to those locations around possibly the Lincoln Memorial, and then we're going to wake up and see, where they're going to be. But one thing we should point out, one of the big reasons that's been given as to why there can't be parades with these vehicles. They're going to be on static display, as you're seeing in these pictures here. They're going to be there for people to see. Is that because they tear up the roads? Back in 1991, after the Gulf War, there was a big parade, hundreds of thousands of troops parading along Pennsylvania Avenue, as well as tanks. One tank even going over the Memorial Bridge into Arlington. Well, unfortunately, those streets were damaged by that situation back then in 1991, and that was a lesson learned. That's one of the reasons why you're not going to be seeing tanks rolling down the streets here in Washington, D.C. on July 4th.
All right, going to be quite a spectacle on Thursday. Louis Martinez, thank you so much. Not everybody is happy about President Trump's salute to the military on this 4th of July. I'm joined now by Jeremy Butler. He's the president and CEO of the Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans of America. It's a nonpartisan organization. He's joining us via FaceTime from Los Angeles. Jeremy, thank you so much. You wrote today in Time magazine about some concerns about how the president is using the military here in this salute to America. Tell us about it.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for having me on the show. I apologize. I'm coming to you from the back seat of a car here. I'm on my way to the airport shortly. But no, absolutely. I did write about it. So one of the things that IAVA focuses on is ensuring that our military and veterans are supported by our government administration and VA Department of Defense officials in a substantive way. What we would rather see, rather than this sort of military parade, is a focus on some substantive efforts to fix and support the military and veterans in ways that are very much in need. We've got 20 veterans a day that are dying by suicide. We've got women veterans that aren't receiving the care and support that they need. We have a GI Bill that's under attack. Recent news reports are talking about some changes in immigration services that are going to directly affect some of our military and veteran members that are non-citizens that could potentially result in them being deported from this country. So there's a lot of substantive issues that we at IAVA have been fighting for. We've got legislation that we support, bipartisan legislation that we just need the Congress to pass and the president to sign. And our view is that if you're going to talk about supporting and defending our veterans and our military, this is the best way to do it, by signing and passing this legislation.
Have you made your views clear directly to the White House at all, Jeremy? Have you had an open channel with them about your concerns about this 4th of July display?
We make our views as clear as they can. We have not had too many invitations from the White House to talk to them directly. We would love to. That is what we are here for as an organization, to talk to members of Congress, talk to the administration, talk to the VA. We are more than happy at any time to come to them to share the views of not just IAVA staff, but our 425,000 members. We do a survey every year of our members to find out what our veterans want and need. We would love to share the results of them directly with the administration anytime that they're willing to talk to us.
All right, Jeremy Butler, CEO of the Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans of America, making an appeal to the White House here on the eve of 4th of July. Jeremy, thanks so much. Happy 4th of July to you, and thanks to you for your service and the service of all of your members. Appreciate you joining us. Now turning to the race for 2020, we have our political director, Rick Klein, here, political reporter Adam Kelsey, and joining us from New York, our political reporter, Sasha Pesnick. She's with us as well, guys. We have a new poll out, which is kind of exciting. This one from Quinnipiac, giving us kind of this first glimpse of the big bounce for Kamala Harris. Walk us through the numbers, Rick.
Yeah, that's the big headline. Kamala Harris has vaulted herself into the top tier of contenders, as you see in these numbers. It's a CNN poll was out yesterday as well, and it suggests that she was the winner of the debate in terms of public perceptions, and we're seeing the numbers begin to support that. A balanced kind of drawing of support that we've seen from her, and maybe some softening for the frontrunner, Joe Biden.
Yeah, are you surprised that, for those looking at the screen here, these are the new numbers from Quinnipiac. Basically, Biden and Harris are statistically tied. That's the lowest number yet in Quinnipiac's polling for Biden, highest number for Harris. I'm sort of stunned by how close that is.
Yeah, and not to get carried away with any one individual poll,
sure,
but you do see a couple of polls that have come out since the debate that show Kamala Harris definitely had a strong night, getting a second look from a lot of folks. Not clear that she's taking away directly from Joe Biden, but to me, and Adam can weigh in on this as well, to me it suggests that this is a wide open race, that this is a front runner that's got some real vulnerabilities.
Absolutely. I mean, what we have continued continue to see in polling, not just over the past week since the debate, but the months since Joe Biden entered this race, is that a lot of the folks who say that Joe Biden is their first choice are at least willing to hear more about some of the other candidates. Everybody seems to know everything about Joe Biden. Being vice president for 8 years will do that for you. But some of these other candidates, the ones in the mid-tier, somebody like Cory Booker, Kamala Harris up until this most recent poll, even Pete Buttigieg, the more unknown candidates, we're seeing in these polls that Democratic voters, those who lean Democratic, they want to hear a lot more about them. So some of those candidates, we've seen Pete Buttigieg rise and fall. Cory Booker's kind of steadily climbed from 1% and 2% to 3% and 4%. Voters willing to hear them out as we go along.
Are you guys surprised, though, by how few people watched the first Democratic debate? At least in the Quinnipiac poll, 40% of Democrats said they watched it. It struck me as low. I mean, it is very early. We put that qualifier in there, but these numbers are based on less than, not even a majority of Democrats, self-identified Democrats, according to the poll, is actually tuning in yet.
Yeah, the ratings were big, but to put it in perspective, I mean, when you talk about even 16 or 18 million people, this is a country of 300 million people.
Right.
You're going to have north of 100 million votes. So people are engaged at different levels right now. To say the whole country is there, this is, I think, the people that are watching now or responding to pollsters, they're more engaged. And we've seen, I think, in each cycle.
More likely to vote, maybe?
More likely to vote, and also more likely to influence public opinion, because they are the people that are getting in this early. But a lot of the campaigns were telling me just last week, this is the first of 12 chapters in terms of debate season.
A long way to go just in the debate season, and we're already on death watch, at least for one campaign. Want to bring in Sasha Pesnick on this one because she is reporting on the John Hickenlooper campaign for us. Sasha, you've got some new reporting just coming in now. You're learning that his campaign urged him to get out of the race just a few weeks ago?
Yeah, that's right, Devin. Major shakeup in the Hickenlooper campaign. We're now learning that 6 key aides are on their way out or have actually already left. That's including the communications director, the campaign manager, the digital director, as well as the national finance director, and the deputy finance director of the Hickenlooper campaign. So it's a lot of people on their way out of a campaign right on the heels of a debate performance that he failed to stand out from the very crowded stage, as well as the close of the second quarter, where campaign fundraising was drawing nigh.
Yeah, I was in the debate spin room in Miami, where at the first day a bunch of reporters actually mistake John Hickenlooper for a member of the press, which is perhaps a sign. But why didn't he take off, Adam? I mean, why didn't he get traction?
Well, he's certainly somebody who wasn't a national name coming into this, and despite the fact that Hickenlooper, you would think it would be easy for people to remember, and he even jokes about getting teased over his name. But somebody who I think campaigns much better at the local level. When you talk to him, he always goes back to that first race he ran in to be mayor of Denver a little bit over a decade ago, and he's really engaged in kind of retail politics, going door to door, shaking hands. He's kind of got a folksy appeal. He was known, at least out in Colorado, for these really kind of creative commercials that he used to run. He doesn't have the money, like Sasha was saying, to start running those commercials, to get his name out there more. And unless you can go see him face to face, like I was talking about in Iowa or New Hampshire, he's not somebody who might connect with.
Too moderate, Mike?
Well, to that point, maybe not where the party is right now in terms of his politics, but the DNC made a decision to make debate qualifications based on getting a number of grassroots donors. Right. 65,000 donors for the first 2 debates. By the time ABC's debate comes around in September, 130,000. That means you have to run a national campaign in some way. You can't meet 130,000 people that are going to write you a check or start giving you a little bit of money. You have to go viral nationally, or you have to start campaigning nationally. And so there's a disadvantage or a disincentive to candidates like Hickenlooper who are going to try to go around at the more retail level. This is what the DNC was trying to do, though. They were trying to force people to start to expand a national fundraising base early on. And in Sasha's reporting, I think it's telling that they're talking about this relatively paltry number of donors that they recognize now. There's almost no chance he makes the debate in September.
Yeah, just 13,000 donors or something like that, $1 million.
That's 10% of the way
Sasha, so as 6 people are leaving his campaign, he did hire a new campaign manager, right? And what's he saying about the road ahead? Is he still determined to stay in?
Right, exactly. And as you guys were saying, he is far afield of the necessary 130,000 donor mark necessary to hit the September debates. He's actually more or less around 13,000 donors right now. So it's going to be a really uphill battle for him, and he appeared on cable networks this morning saying that the road ahead for him, he said it was time. We thought it was time to make a change, but actually a lot of his staff sort of left of their own accord. Sources who are familiar with the situation told us that they really didn't want to watch a slow death march towards the campaign's last 10 cents, and it's been really hard to watch now. But he is in it for the bitter end, sources tell us.
And you'll be there all the way. Sasha Pesnick joining us from New York. Thank you so much, guys, and a busy weekend ahead. In Iowa, 4th of July, always a time for the candidates to show their colors a little bit. And Rick, you were saying that Biden and Harris will be together in Iowa tomorrow. This will be the first time they'll face off since the debate.
Yeah, I mean, they won't literally cross paths, but I think a lot of reporters are going to be asking questions about each other because of that very high-profile flash last week. I think it's going to be a very big deal. And we'll have some new polling numbers out tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. on ABC News Washington Post.
Fantastic. We'll be in the note.
You got it.
All right. Rick Klein, our political director, Adam Kelsey, political reporter. Thank you guys for being here. Thank you for watching us on this Tuesday. Hope you're having a good holiday week. I'm Devin Dwyer in Washington. We'll see you right back here tomorrow, 3:30 Eastern Time in the briefing room.